Welcome to the Erie Maritime Museum, home of the U.S. brig Niagara and a whole lot more. This is actually a former Penelec generating station, an important part of our harbor history. We couldn't have built a better museum. The building itself, you can see wonderful lines in classic architecture, solid, but most important, the space enables us to bring in some wonderful exhibits that take up a lot of room, and you'll see a little bit more on the floor. Some of the exciting things you'll see when you come into the Maritime Museum are related to the War of 1812. You'll be able to see the impact of naval warfare in a very dramatic way. We've reconstructed a section of bulwarks. We use it to represent the damage done to the U.S. brig Lawrence, Perry's flagship, during the Battle of Lake Erie. So as part of this demonstration, we took this piece out, fired upon it with the same weights of shot that the British would have fired upon the Lawrence during the Battle of Lake Erie. Part of the visitor's experience at the Maritime Museum is to view both a short version and a longer version of the video made during that experiment. So it really brings home just how powerful, first of all, artillery can be when used in this way, and it gives you a very real sense. I've actually seen people wince when they saw the shot going through the bulwarks and the spray of splinters that these men stood under. In most museums, only 15 to 20% of their collection is on exhibit at any given time. I'd like to take you back to show you a couple of artifacts that aren't currently on display, but soon to be on our floor. These will even more so help us bring these histories of our two vessels to life for you. We're in the museum's collections workroom. This is really where work begins. We can do everything from the computer input and cataloging in here, but more important, this is a safe and secure place when artifacts are brought into the museum, given as gifts. This is where we will hold them and secure them until we can go through the accessioning process. This is a very incredible artifact. This is a fife. Now, this fife was played by Cyrus Tiffany at the beginning of the Battle of Lake Erie. Cyrus Tiffany was an African-American sailor, a fifer, on board the USS Lawrence. The fife was said to have also been played outside the tent of George Washington when Cyrus Tiffany served as a soldier during the Revolutionary War. This is another donation from one of the Perry family descendants. This had been entrusted to their care. Most recently, it had been on exhibit up until 1920 at the Rhode Island Historical Society. After that, it stayed with the family, and at one point people look at what they have and realize that there's an important story, and it's a story they want to share with people, so this is the time when people bring their items in. One of the more exciting things that was observed, and I will say it's not my observation, but another person on staff here, if you take a look at the embouchure here, you can see there's a discoloration and a staining right there. And it indicates the direction in which the fife was held being played. The long and short of it is we've realized that this fife was used by someone playing with the left-handed person. Maybe trivial, maybe not the most important thing is that he played left-handed, but it still it gives you that little connection to a person. We talk about the USS Michigan Wolverine, and at one point we thought when we moved the prow of that ship onto our exhibit floor that we had all that remained of that vessel. Well, you know, never say never. There's not absolutes. This is actually part of the USS Michigan. This is a decorative cover for the ventilation holes on the paddle wheel box. And this star was removed along with its twin sometime during the 1940s when the then Wolverine was left tied up in Misery Bay her final days. Ultimately she was scrapped, but before she was scrapped, these pieces and parts, people would visit Presque Isle and they took some souvenirs from the ship. And a couple of brothers took the paddle box stars sometime in the 40s. One of them has made its way home to us. It's had an interesting life in between. You can see it, you know, the star shape of it, and it wasn't red and it wasn't green, and it certainly didn't have glitter on it when it was part of a naval ship. After the boys removed them, they decorated them. This one has seen a little bit of life as a Christmas ornament. It was put out for yard sale. Fortunately, it didn't sell, and one of the young men who a little later in life decided that maybe it was time to bring this artifact back to Erie, brought it in, and we're delighted to have it with its red and green paint and glitter and all of its story in between. This is another one of those pieces and parts of the USS Wolverine that have come home. More important sometimes, or equally important to the artifact, is the story that comes with it. And this one was particularly interesting. This was given to a 9-year-old boy who happened to be the son of Peter Schaff, who was Commander William Morrison's second in command on the Wolverine. William Morrison was Wolverine's last commander. In 1949, when Wolverine was being towed to scrap, Commander Morrison was on board with Pete Schaff and his young 9-year-old son Chuck. This was given to Pete and Chuck. It's a lamp right out of Commander Morrison's own cabin. And so we're very fortunate this didn't end up scrapped as well. We're in collection storage here, and one of the groups of artifacts I find most intriguing are the group of motors. These are motorboats, motors for motorboats. This is a collection of 9 that came in from the Pennsylvania Fish Commission. These are all outboard motors for recreational vessels that date from the 1920s through the 1950s, predominantly the 20s and 30s. These are going to make a very interesting exhibit once we can do the necessary research and build the kind of display that these would warrant. They're appropriate for us to collect because they are representative of something that was used recreationally primarily, although this could have been fishing, small, again, not, this is sport fishing, not commercial fishing, but these are used by, typical of what was used right out on Erie Bay. Because there's so many maritime industries, and in particular boat building and shipbuilding here in Erie, as you can imagine, we have a number of tools related to those industries. We collect them all, even though you might take a look at them and say, well, gee whiz, this looks pretty much like the same thing you have on exhibit. Many of the tools continue to be used with minor variations on them throughout the 19th and 20th century, though. These are major industries in Erie, and the tools were tools that were used to build those industries and build the products there. In my opinion, the best artifacts are those that really tie us to people in the events. They tell us stories about how we live, how we work, some of the situations we find ourselves in, but the best of these, I think you'll find, help us recreate people's stories, how we lived in a time past, how we spent our time, whether it's work, whether it's recreation. Those outboard motors are just as important to paint a picture of life in Erie as are the implements that are used in war.